Please be seated. Oui, vous s'asseoir.
Yes, Ms. von Wistinghausen.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam President, Your Honours. Before the break, we were talking about material harm. It lies, of course, in the brutal nature of the charged attacks on Kudum and Bendisi, that there was widespread burning and damage to the homes and the belongings of its residents. Where property was not destroyed, it was looted, including crops, livestock, home furnishings, currency, gold, jewelry. To this day, none of the participating victims have been compensated for their immense material losses. Prosecution witness P0020 powerfully summed up what, in his view, was the impact of the 2003 to 2005 conflict on the members of his community. He stated, and I quote, "The conflict in West Darfur impacted the Fur community economically, socially, culturally, even emotionally and psychologically. The Fur community lost all its resources. Even the fields and the agricultural lands were destroyed. The people had to leave their regions, and they are still living in the IDP camps, and sometimes in camps outside the country. We will never be able to talk about their livelihoods. Their education institutions have been destroyed. Their businesses have been destroyed. It is the whole cycle of life that has been destroyed. They have nothing left." End of quote. This is trial transcript 41, pages 77 to 78. Given that all the participating victims have been subjected to and lost their current circumstances, and the almost 2 decades that have passed since the charged events in Kundum, Bendisi, Mokshar, and Telej, it is a very pertinent and, in our view, important question as to what exactly they expect from these proceedings, this court, and from your honors. I can offer at least a partial answer arising from the testimony of witnesses during the prosecution's case and from our consultations with the participating victims. The victims of the alleged crimes in these proceedings seek justice, accountability, and of course recognition on behalf of themselves, their families, and the wider Fur community. But also, as I addressed earlier, as a demonstration of the international community's commitment to stand against ongoing serious criminal and human rights violations, and as a measure guarding against repetition of the terrible and dehumanizing conduct and circumstances to which the participating victims have been subject. Tied to this, we heard many times from participating victims, is the strong belief that the process of justice is an essential component of seeking a resolution to the still ongoing instability and violence that plagues Darfur, and ultimately the possibility for them to return to their ancestral lands and their former lives, traditions, and communities. And that comes up over and over again, this wish to return to their lands. These views were powerfully expressed, and as I quoted from at the beginning of this opening statement, in the testimonies of dual status victims P0584, P0907, and P0986. The participating victims have emphasized to us the need for justice to take its course and the importance of the judicial process moving forward since the events of 2003 and 2004 that have so marked their lives. A victim of the Bindisi incident, for example, stated to me that for her, and I quote, "Justice means living with my dignity. If justice is made, my rights are back, and I go back to my hometown, live as before, my dignity will be restored, and this is justice for me." End of quote. A victim of the Kudum incident explained to me, and I quote, "If I get my rights back and justice is made, maybe I will live like a human being. If I get my rights, I will have freedom and live my life." End of quote. Another participating victim addressed me, and indeed, Your Honours, as follows, and I quote, "The legal representative of victims and the court generally is responsible for what we have been working on for so long. We have been advocating, complaining, looking for justice for 20 years. Now, all our work is in your hands. It is in yours." End of quote. To many of you, I'm afraid, especially those who read our trial brief submitted on the 31st of March of this year, some of this may sound redundant and also very similar from what you have heard from participating victims in other criminal trials. What we wish to emphasize, however, and urge Your Honours to keep in mind, is that these are the fundamental and solemn views and concerns of the participating victims in these proceedings, as expressed individually by them, and that they can therefore not be redundant by nature. Very often, when we speak about violations of international criminal and humanitarian law, we speak about macro criminality, and all those involved have traveled a path that is not only intertwined and reaches far back into the past, but at the edges of which there are also many spectators with completely different preconceptions. As a rule, major social issues are debated and history is invoked. There is agreement that the subject of the proceedings is always the responsibility of the perpetrator, not the investigation of a historical fact and the final judgment on it. So just as we focus on the individual criminal responsibility of the accused in this very trial, we must also be able to look at the individual impact and consequence for every participating victim, which will never be the same, independently of similar and repetitive cruel external circumstances. While a community may be impacted, we must be careful not to limit our understanding to notions of some kind of collective suffering. I therefore request Your Honours to take the time and to devote the necessary attention to individual accounts of victims and the concrete particularity of the individual experience, rather than to look at the victims participating in the present proceedings solely as a victims group or victims community. I would like to close this statement on behalf of the 600 participating victims in these proceedings with a few of the messages we have received from some of them in recent weeks. It is their voice and words that truly matter, and I accordingly give the floor to them. First, we have Mohammed. Of course, it's not his real name. Originally from Bindisi and around 70 years of age, he is a long-term refugee in Chad. I apologize, Your Honor. Sometimes technique doesn't work as we would wish it to work. So please, can I ask for some patience?
I'm noted for my patience, Miss von Wissinghausen, as you know. Miss von sorry. Miss von Wissinghausen, I gather that there is a technical problem, so although it was tested this morning, it won't play. I mean, do you want us to rise while they try and sort it out?
It's not working and it won't work, or it's just a question of patience?
It won't work, I think.
It won't work.
Unless I'm told. If you just, yeah, well, apparently they're going to try and check in the next minute and see what's happening.
And it would be unfortunate if it didn't work, because the purpose is of you to hear the voices of the participating victims rather than me reading on their behalf what they want to say.
I understand that.
كنت في منطقة البندزي وفقدت كتلة الأشياء و
Okay, I was able to hear something.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يعني من مواطنين محلية بندزي من 2003 ولحد الآن نعاني المعاناة، وأنا إن شاء الله نتمنى
Council kindly confirm if we should play the audio from our...
Yes, if you could play it from the beginning, and the interpreters have the transcripts so that they can translate to English for us. So if we can play them, well, first the first, and then I'm introducing the second, and then the third. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يعني من مواطنين محلية بندزي من 2003.
This is obviously the wrong footage. What I hear in my earphone is certainly not a victim from Bindisi.
I can't tell because I don't understand.
I recognize the voice, and it's a voice that is very familiar to me, and the person is sitting in my back.
Oh, I apologize. This is, of course, not
That's
what
the
I'm
voice,
supposed to
that's
present
the
here.
voice of Mr. Abd Al Rahman that we are hearing.
Why are we hearing Mr. Abd Al Rahman's voice at all?
No, we're not supposed to hear his voice. We are supposed to hear the voice of victim A2067020. He's a man from Bindisi, and he has a message for your honors that he has sent for exactly that purpose. And we sent it to the court management section, and we gave the transcription of the messages, all the messages we want to play, to the interpreters to make it easier for them.
I still didn't.
And to defense and prosecution. I mean, everybody received this well in advance.
T'es sûr que c'est le du client? Hein? T'es sûr que c'est le du client? Attends, le micro.
We did. Judge Alapini Gonsu says that it was clear that the first time we heard the voice, he spoke about Bindisi. I don't know why we've suddenly gone over to somebody else's.
Exactly, the first soundtrack was right.
Yeah. I actually think, Ms. von Dissinghausen, I understand why you want to play it, and I think the best thing is we'll rise while they try and sort out what's going on. Unless you want to go, unless you just want to go on.
If that's all right with you, because as I said, this is how we want to end this opening.
Microphone.
Well, if that's a possibility, yes, because this is how we want to end this opening, and it is very important for me that you hear these messages in live that have been sent to us for this very purpose. So if we can make it happen, it would be, I would be
yes,
very
all right.
grateful.
We'll rise while we try and sort out what actually is going on here. However, I given that I was told firmly that everything had been checked in this court last Friday, and that it was all working perfectly, it's a little disappointing. Yes, all right, we'll adjourn.
Rise, veuillez vous lever. Rise, veuillez vous lever. Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Mr. Lachey, I'm told you unnecessarily confused matters. It wasn't your client's voice at all. Yes, now we're ready to try and play it.
Yes, now maybe to give context where these recordings come from. They obviously come from participating victims. It's actually small videos that they sent to us with a message to your honors. We're not playing the videos for obvious reasons, and so we have chosen just to play the messages so that you can only hear the voices of the participating victims. So as I had indicated before this little technical break, we first have a gentleman originally from Bindisi, around 70 years of age, and he's a long-term refugee in Chad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يعني من مواطنين محلية بندسي من 2003 ولحد الآن نعاني المعاناة، وأنا إن شاء الله نتمنى من القضاء في محكمة الدولية إن شاء الله يحققوا لنا العدالة، ونحن نعاني معاناة لحد الآن. لا عندنا تعليم كويس، لا عندنا حتى لو زول مريض تدار علاج، والمعسكرات وليهم صعب شويه، والمنظمات اللي بدونا ما بكفي شيء لانه ما بيساوي 10%. فنحن تعبانين، العداله يحقق العداله بتاعه، وعشان نلقى حقنا من العداله. نحن المدررين واهل دارفور بصفه عامه، ونشكركم كثير كاهل المحكمه، وشكرا جزيلا ان شاء الله.
Next, we will hear from a participating victim who I will refer to as Idris. Like Muhammad, he's from Bindisi and a long-term refugee in Chad. He was a teenager at the time of the attack on Bindisi.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا من منطقة وادي سالي بالتحديد بندسي. قد كنت في منطقة البندسي وفقدت كل الأشياء وأخذت المعاناة أديد جدا جدا من بندسي إلى موجر وإلى ديليج. سوف انتقلت بقيت لاجي الآن في دولة تشاد، وأنا نتحدث الآن من قبل المحكمة الجنائية الدولية. طبعا ما نقدر نديكم الخلاصة عامة، لكن ده نبذة منه بأنه بنعاني من أشياء كثيرة جدا جدا. نحن فقدنا الحياة وفقدنا كل الأشياء اللي في حوزتنا، فقدناها من سبب الحرب. ونشهد بأنه الآن نعاني أولا من التعليم، ثانيا من المعقل والمشرف في ظروف سيئة جدا جدا، ونعني من العلاج. المنظمات قاعدة تقدم ليس كافي، إنما 5% فقط لا يقدر يغطي حوجتنا، ونحن فاقدين الحياة الأساسية وكل المتطلبات الحياة الأساسية نحن فاقدين عنه. الآن الصورة اللي شايفينه أو الفيديو، أنا الآن هسه في المنظرة بتاعت الزول للشخص آخر. قد جيت بإنه نعمل عمل لكي نجد لقمة العيش، وهذا المعصى نحن عايشين فيه 19 سنة ولا 20 سنة في المعسكرات اللزوم والنزوم. نريد نتحدث للمحكمة لكي تسرع في موضوع المحكمة لكي يسترد حقوقنا. نحن عزيزين لوطننا وعزيز لوطني ووطني عزيز له. لو كانت أثبت شنو أنا عزيز لوطني وطني أفضل لي، كم مشيت وين فلا بد أن نعود إلى بلدي. ونحن الآن نطلب في المحكمة فقط العدالة. العدالة إذا وصلت العدالة نحن نكون لكي نتمكنوا بأنه نكون نسترد حقوقنا وحقوق كل المتضررين، لأن نحن ذات مضرر القاعد نتحدث أمامكم لكي نريد للمحكمة عشان يستمر في عمليات العدالة لكي نعود إلى بلاد. حصل المحل اللي أنا موجود فيه أصلا ده الزراعة بتاع الناس، جينا قاعدين نشتغل فيه عشان نلقى لقمة العيش، وأصبح بإنه بهذا الشكل ذا شايفينه بإنه مقدد وحاجة في القميص، بإنه ده من الزراعة. جينا بإنه شغالين أمام الناس أعمال شاقة جدا جدا، والمحكمة جمعا كما وصلنا في هذا الشبكة. وأنا مبسوط جدا جدا من طرفكم وشكرا لكم.
Now, Ibrahim will address your honors. Ibrahim was originally from Kudum, and he was a young man at the time of the 15th August attack 2003. Like Muhammad and Idris, Ibrahim is a long-term refugee in Chad as well.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من مشاركي المحكمة الجنائية. طيب، أنا هسه حاليا لاجئ في دولة تشاد. أنا من مواطني قرية قدوم. أنا أول قبل المشاكل كنت عايش حياة كريمة في قريتي في قدوم. كنا قاعدين نمارس الزراعة والتجارة وتربية الحيوانات، وأيامنا قاعدين يواصلوا في التعليم. نحن ذات كنا نواصل في التعليم، لكن بعد المشاكل اتعرضنا لظروف قاسية شديد. بعد ما حصل هجوم في القرية، أنا ذات يعني من ضمن الميتين، لكن بس ربنا سلمني. وحقيقة كثير من الأسرة تم قتلهم، والآخرين شردوهم وفي جزء منهم اللي اغتصبوهم وفي حالات كثيرة يعني. أنا هسي حاليا بعد المجاسرة حاولت ولجأت في الدولة التشاد مع أسرتي، وبعد ما جينا في الدولة التشاد يعني قاعد يواجهنا مشاكل كثيرة شديدة من جانب السكن وجانب الغذاء وجانب الصحة العلاجية وجانب الأمن. يعني خلاص حسي بيوتنا ده مبنية من القش. يعني القش ده الكبريت واحد ده ممكن ينتهي منه في لحظة، ولا نملك شيء على أساس إنه نستطيع إنه نبني بيوت عشان ما نقدر نحمي أنفسنا من الحر ومن البرد، لأنه بيوت القش في حالة البرد ما في شيء بحمينا، البرد بيجينا شديد، في حالة الحر كذلك بيجينا الحر شديد. وحتى الفرشات اللي ننوم فوق ده ما عندنا فرشات وما عندنا سراير، لكن ننوم على الأرض زي ده بس يعني. طيب جانب المعيشة معيشة صعبة شديد. زمانك المنظمات بيقدم لنا المساعدات، لكن هسي حاليا المنظمات وقفت من تقديم المساعدات، هسي وقفت ومسيرنا صعب. يعني خلاص البلد ما عنده شركات عشان الواحد يمشي يشتغل على الأقل عشان يجيب شيء يقدر إنه يأكل أسرته ويحسن ظروفه المعيشية والتعليمية والجوانب الصحية طبعا حسب الاحتياجات. إذن مسيرنا حاليا صعبة شديد. جانب التعليم أنا عندي عيال عددهم 8، 3 ذكور و5 إناث. هسي حاليا الأربعة دخلوا التعليم. ليه؟ لأنه ما عندنا شيء نملكه عشان نستطيع إنه عيال دي نقدر نعلمهم، والآخرين قاعدين بيواصلوا، ولو واصلوا برضو في صعوبات قاعد بيواجهنا. أبدا نعلمهم بشنو؟ لأنه لا نملك شيء وهنا فرص عمل ما في، وحتى لو علمناهم الجزء لو هسه في واحد وصل ثانوية وقدام برضو هيقيف، لأنه ما عندي قروش على الأقل إنه ما بعد الثانوية إنه يمشي واصل في الجامعة، ما في قروش. إذن المسير بتاعه إنه حتما برضو هيقيف زي ما أخوانا.
Next, Your Honors, we'll hear from a participating victim who I will refer to as Abdul. Abdul addresses you from an IDP camp in Darfur. He's an elderly gentleman and was a survivor of the delayed charged incident.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عمري 94 سنة وقايد في كلمة من تردونا اللي قايلين محيفين زي ده، لا أكلنا لا شربنا كتير، لكن اللي حاجات اللي بيجيبوك وجات شوية ده يقسمونا وبابا خفينا. أول بداية يا سيدنا عمل نظام عشان نحن ناس المحكمة يشوفوا، وقتلوا ليه الناس وتردونا. هسا أرجينا كله في بيدهم. نينا هسا دايرين حكم إن شاء الله عشان ناخد نرتاح شوية كده، عشان نينا هسا تعبانين.
Now, Your Honors will be addressed by a gentleman who I will refer to as Siddiq. He was a survivor of the Mukjar charged incident. He's in his 60s and he's a long-term refugee in Chad.
أنا قاعد مبشتا مهان بقبل العلاج والأكل والشرب، لا لاقي أي حاجة، حتى الأوين والأطفال إذا كان عانانا أي مشكلة من العلاج ما قادرين عشان نلقوا علاج نتعالج العيال، والأكل ذاته ما متوفرة. أرجو منكم رجاء خاص أن تشوفوا لنا قضيتنا بتاع دارفور عشان تحلوا مشاكلنا. أنا نلقى حقي والأهل وأسرتي يلقى حقه، وجميع الأهل في دارفور يلقوا حقهم بالإجماع. وشكرا. السلام عليكم.
Last. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Kaltuma will have the honor of addressing the trial chamber. She is a long-term refugee in Chad, in her 40s, and she's an indirect victim of the Mukhtar charged incident, during which her brother is alleged to have been detained and killed.
وأنا متضررة في مشاكل، وأنا هسي في معسكر في شرق شاد، وأنا أطلب من المحكمة داير العدالة من المحكمة. وأنا من يومنا هذا لحد من 2004 لحد 19 سنة في المعسكر معاني في أشياء كثيرة مرة، بالذات الأكل واحد والعلاج والتعليم بسيطة، وهنا نلقوا مساعدات حبة حبة من المنظمات وما بكفي. والمهم لو عندك ولد مريض ما بتقدر يعني تلقى حاجة عشان تعالجه، العلاج بقى صعب والقروش ما في، ولو ده تعلم هناك طبعا تعليم صعب، ما في قروش زول عشان يكفي ولا التعليم. هسه عيالنا قاعدين ساعد بس ما قاعدين بقرب، وده بمناسبة معانا لنا ولأسرتنا ولأهلنا كله في دارفور حتى الآن. إحنا دايرين العدالة، نشوفوا لنا العدالة ويجري العدالة على مجراه. طبعا إحنا في المعسكر هنا الحالة صعبة جدا جدا، زول ما في شغل تم تشتغل عشان تيجي توفر له جنك بقى عيان عشان تشتري له الدواء برضو ما في قروش، لو تعلم جناك ما في، المعيشة بقى صعبة. فإحنا دايرين القضية ده إن شاء الله نحلوا لنا ناس القضايا ده من ده بتاعي ده الطلبية عشان يحلوا لنا، ومهما كان شنو لو القضية ده يزول يرجع لوطنه ويكون عزيز في وطنه، والناس دارفور برضه يرتاحوا، ونحن وأسرتنا كله نرتاحوا. مهما كان شنو لازم ترجع وطنك. 19 سنة معاناة في نفس المعاناة البداية 2004 لحد الآن برضو ما في نفس الحال، بس احنا دايرين ناس القضية الناس المحكمة دي اللي يشوفوا القضية ده، ودايرين حقوقنا ودايرين سلام ودايرين أمني في بلدنا إن شاء الله، وربنا يرجعنا وطننا بالسلامة. وشكرا عليكم كثير، الله يبارك فيك.
On behalf of the participants, thank you.
You broke up there.
I just said, on behalf of the participating victims, I thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. von Wistinghausen. Is the witness ready? I'm told that he is, yeah.
Yes, it just needs a little break to set up the video link.
Well, I gather it won't take more than a minute or so I think we'll just remain on the bench.